Welcome back to Chattery Included, where today I'm hopping back on the Disney Princess wagon to try and finish them up before 2025. That doesn't sound like a real year. And before we can spiral, we're on Pocahontas. Warning, this is not my best work by any means. There are loads of mistakes, but we're still on track for our New Year's resolution, which I will promptly stop bringing up in February when we've all forgotten what we set out to do this year and burning crash into our old habits like there is no better feeling. So I thought of the background pretty easily for this one, but I figured it was one of those that needed to wait until the piece was completed to arrange it right, which sounds really dumb considering what the background is, but that was my process. I also took a break from this one after struggling with a lot of the initial sketch. I don't know, this just wasn't my best day for drawing or something. Something about it continued to look wrong even when I felt like I was getting it right, and since my brain doesn't actually work for flipping the canvas, I didn't exactly know how to go about fixing it. So initially, when the sketch started to look bad, I saved and stepped away from the whole workstation. I was intent on getting some housework done instead. I was gonna abandon this and start fresh the next day. However, I remembered that was what I had done last year for it. I had started Pocahontas last year, right? Same problem. Different sketch, different pose, different background shape, but none of it ever felt right, so I scrapped it, and then I came back to drawing. I guess I either consciously decided to move on to something I was more excited for, or I genuinely forgot and drew Mulan instead. So my entire posting schedule got ruined at that point, and then the shit show that was September, October happened, and then Nano for November. You get it. It only takes a snowflake to start an avalanche, and that was my snowflake. I know some people who do art say to start with a sketch that you love, but sometimes I don't think that's helpful. Sketches always look a little wonky, you know? They don't have all of the details, they just loosely translate to the idea, so I don't fully endorse that statement yet. Maybe one day I will, but for now, I started with a sketch I wasn't really impressed with, refined it until it was meh, and then set to lining and coloring. I had initially color picked directly from a screen cap of the movie, but I didn't particularly love the skin tone from that screen cap, and I couldn't decide if it was a lighting issue, or if it was just the color Disney chose to use, or if it was a screen cap that had a filter over it. Either way, I didn't feel like the color was a color that skin could naturally be. It was more like a crystal gem from Steven Universe, so I tweaked it a little, and I think that is the only color I played with. I think the rest are all directly color dropped from that screen cap until we get to the leaves, which I just looked at a picture and chose as close as I could. So, if you don't know me, a little background. I used to be the biggest Disney fanatic. Mid-high school to adulthood, I popped back into my childhood for a while and just went on a big Disney binge. As a kid, I was raised in a very strict, almost brainwashing style Christian household. We weren't allowed to take in media that wasn't inherently Christian. No magic, no elves, no trolls. We watched a lot of VeggieTales and other Bible-based shows from the time. The one major exception being that my grandfather's wife would send movies and money through the mail so that we could go to the theater because she believed, religious or not, kids deserve to be kids. Note, this woman was not my grandmother. My grandmother was a real piece of work. The woman I'm talking about was a delight, and while I wasn't super close to her because I was a child and she lived out of state, I regret not getting to know her better before she passed, and I loved her all the same. She would send us Disney or Don Bluth movies and maybe a little cash to go to the theaters, get some popcorn. Good times. My mom didn't love it, but she also recognized that it would be extremely rude to trash or just give away things meant for us, especially gifts, so we got to keep them. She would just urge us to watch the Christian things a little more frequently. And what happened was kind of that forbidden fruit thing. I wasn't allowed to enjoy movies with magic or Greek gods or mushrooms that make you grow and shrink until suddenly I was, and I became vaguely obsessed. As a kid, I remember really loving Aladdin and Peter Pan, Mulan, and The Great Mouse Detective. I don't have vivid memories of watching any of the other Disney animated masterpiece collection until later, but I do know we owned a fair few. So we watched them, I knew them, I just don't vividly remember watching and enjoying them as much as I do the ones I previously listed. I do, though, remember really enjoying Pocahontas. So much so that I had Pocahontas merchandise. Not a lot, mind you, we were broke, but some. The main thing I remember was I had this sleeping bag. I had two of them, one of which being Pocahontas themed, and I would zip them together to make one large pocket. And it was so nice. The inside of the Pocahontas one was the softest shade and texture of yellow. It felt like sleeping on a cloud, you know, before you realize that clouds are made of water and you would sink through. It was extremely well loved, and for the life of me, I can't remember what happened to it. So that makes me sad, but we're gonna ignore that. Regardless, as a child who didn't know the story of the real Pocahontas and didn't care that it was illogical or that there was tree-talking magic that made the love interests be able to understand each other, I enjoyed the movie. It was bright, the animation was fun, and the animal sidekicks never failed to make me laugh. Especially the bird. When I relived my Disney childhood, I found a lot of the other movies were just as charming, so Pocahontas fell away for the Aristocats and Tangled and so forth. In high school, I found myself getting very into painting, and it wasn't completely uncommon for me to paint Disney characters. So people would see me give a canvas of a Disney character to a friend, and they would request me to make one for themselves. And they weren't great, but they were fun. They were very good for practicing the painting. I remember sketching Disney characters in my sketchbook or doodling them on papers that I had to turn in. And it was so simple and freeing. There was also a project that I had to do, I think about it, in art class in high school, where we had to take the silhouette of a person's head and shoulders and divide it into like 13 shapes, and then fill in each shape with something about ourselves. And at the time, I was in the height of my Disney mania, so obviously I made each space a different Disney movie. I really wish I still had it. I have no idea what happened to that either. I'm really good at losing things. What I do remember though is that my art teacher didn't realize like how into Disney I was. And he tried to like challenge me, right? He tried to tell me that I was just picking the mainstream movies to put on my piece and that I didn't know any of the old classics. So he tried to quiz me quite loudly in the middle of the room where everyone can see, which was a bold move, sir. And it was all in good fun. I wasn't being picked on. Maybe I was, I don't know. That kind of thing goes over my head sometimes. He named a few characters and then I would like say the movie. What he didn't know was what he thought was going to be his ace in the hole was going to have been my favorite Disney movie since I was like 4. So he said Olivia Flanghanger, and I said Flaversham. And for those who don't know, in The Great Mouse Detective, the detective, Basil, seems to struggle to remember a child's last name and continues to make up nonsense names for her throughout the movie. One of which being Flanghanger, and her name is Olivia Flaversham. But my art teacher was just kind of stunned for a second. Like, he thought he was going to trip me up because it's not one of those movies that a lot of kids my age grew up with. It's not one that Disney constantly throws in your face, like, oh, we have this! And that's one of my fond memories of high school. Not that there are too many. Back on topic, it was really nice to relive a simpler time in my life, though. To just doodle and listen to a soundtrack. And it was kind of stress relief at its finest once I decided to let go of the imperfections of the sketch and just go for it, just let the music vibe me through the piece. Trust the process, if you will. It was nice. I enjoyed it. Even if I don't love the way the piece turned out, I still love the feelings that I had once I came back to it and was finishing it. Like, it made me feel good and accomplished and very free-flowing, and I will always say art is allowed to be bad. Even if I don't think this is bad, it's still not good. Art doesn't have to be about perfection. It doesn't have to be about hyper-realism. It's about invoking a mood or a vibe. And for me, the vibe that was invoked upon looking at the finished piece was the happy vibe I got from accomplishing it as I was drawing it. The vibe you will get from it is probably different, and that's okay. You don't have to like it, you don't have to dislike it for it to still have been something that I created that I'm going to call art. So as this piece draws to a close, I would love to know your childhood favorite movies. Leave it in the comments and we can chat about it. Thank you for joining me on another artsy adventure. Make sure to check out the rest of the channel for more videos like this one. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to join the fun on a more regular basis. And honestly, just have a good day. Time's gonna be hard, the stress looms around every corner, and if you need to doodle out your worries and cares, I hope you'll do it with me. See you next time! Bye-bye!